Welcome to the Simpler Business Podcast, where we talk about ways to do what you love and serve your people in a way that brings you income and freedom. I'm your host, Marissa Roberts. Join me as I chat with my favorite entrepreneurs about how they simplify their biz so that you can simplify yours. Remember when you first started your business and how excited you were to set your goals and plan out your business model and your offers and your marketing strategy? Then you got busy with the day-to-day running of your business and suddenly you were in the thick of it. Proposals, onboarding, project work, handling the little things that pop up unexpectedly and seem to need your attention right away. And then one day you look up and you realize that while you enjoy what you do and you have enough work to cover your bills and expenses, you haven't really made any headway towards achieving your long-term goals in terms of business growth and profit. You're so busy focused on the everyday stuff that even just finding the time and space to start thinking long-term again, let alone planning actions to achieve those goals, feels impossible. You're already exhausted just trying to keep everything going. You want more results for your business, but if you put in more hours, you're risking burnout. And the whole reason you started your business in the first place was to have more freedom. So what do? Well, you start by learning from the people who have been there before. I'm chatting with Hunter Lowder today about reverse engineering your business growth, and I have a feeling you'll love what she has to share. Hunter is co-owner of Tortoise and the Bear, a business strategy, operations and mindset coaching company that supports visionaries in bringing their wild and crazy dreams to life. Coupling her past business experience as CEO of a multi-million-dollar company with mindful coaching approaches, Hunter helps service-based business owners create and prioritize a strategic plan to grow their impact and move their business forward in a sustainable way, which you all know I love. After suffering severe burnout as a CEO, Hunter is passionate about building a business in alignment with her values. And I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Welcome, Hunter.
Thank you for having me, Marissa.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. We were talking over email and I was like, I just need to have Hunter on the show because I was like stalking your website going, this is a perfect fit for my listeners. It's a perfect fit for what I talk about. We're really big on simplifying so that you and working in alignment with your own strengths and talents, so that your business doesn't feel like it overtakes you. And I feel like you have a lot to share in that sort of scope because you've experienced burnout as a CEO. And for people who are listening who are like, oh, I feel like I'm heading down that track and I don't want to go there, I think your insights will be really, really helpful for them. So yeah, I'm excited to have you here.
Absolutely. I felt a great connection with that email you said about content repurposing. I'm a big fan of doing less work and getting the same results and not following all the rules that we've been taught that you have to do it a certain way. So I really felt a great connection when I got that email from you.
Oh, it was just meant to be, wasn't it, for us to meet, I think. So tell us about your CEO journey with burnout. What was your experience, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, no, I don't mind sharing. I was thinking about it and I was like, well, how do I boil this down into a smaller conversation? Because burnout happens over many years. It's never one thing happened and then I burned out. It's usually small hints and small things are going wrong. And you just kind of push them to the side and go, no, it's fine. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Hustle all the time, just do it, no pain, no gain. And then all of a sudden your body's like, no, we cannot do this anymore. So it happened to me about over a 5 to 7 year period that had everything from insomnia to heart palpitations, to panic attacks, to depression, anxiety. And the person you see in front of you, I'm typically like a super confident, like outgoing, very energetic person. And over the course of about 5 or 7 years, I literally became like a shivering chihuahua in the corner, just like everything was scary. Everything was intense. I couldn't do life anymore, almost.
Yeah. And it just feels like everything is hard, right? Even the little things, just too
Everything's hard.
Worth it. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a really scary place to be because, on the business side of things, of course, it's tricky anyway, because how do you keep all those balls in the air sort of thing? But on a personal level too, it's really difficult because you've still got that constant need to feel like you're on all the time or that you've got to show up as the person people are used to seeing. Because I think as much as we care about the people that work with us and we care about our customers, I don't know, I think there's still this sort of feeling like you have to show that you can handle everything or that you don't need to ask for help yourself because you don't want to appear too vulnerable. And I think in the past year or two, that's starting to break down a little in the entrepreneur world. And I'm really happy to see that, because as soon as you see a bit of a behind the scenes peek at anyone's life and you think, oh, they actually have a bit of trouble with that too, or they struggle there too, or that's a lot on their plate as well. It kind of makes me, as the consumer, as the viewer, as the follower, it makes me not feel better. I don't feel good that they're going through that, but I relate to it because, I have the juggle of home and family life, and everybody has that feeling like, well, when I grow and scale, how am I going to be able to keep up with that? And, it's nice to know you're not alone. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think being an entrepreneur, especially in the online world, can be really lonely because you probably are working from home in your little office and you're just kind of disconnected from the world, in a certain way. So being able to understand that other people are experiencing that too, it is a really wonderful comfort. And then you realize that there are resources that you can actually tap into to, like you said, avoid burnout or recover from it.
Yeah. And so it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be I'm either all in and burning out or I give up my business entirely, does it?
No, I think the black and white idea that it's either this or it's that, it's all or it's nothing, you're all in or you're not in at all, like that, like you said, is starting to really go away. And it's really people that are looking at their lives and saying, here's what's important to me, and here's how I want to live my life. And I want my business to be a part of that. And it's just, I think, turning the whole business world up on its head, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested to kind of think about just the last couple of years with the global situation and the pandemic and the change of working styles. I'm wondering if that's helped rather than hindered it, because it's kind of forced us to look at ways to change things, and blending of home and family life and work life has been part of that too. But I don't know, I think everyone's had good and bad experiences with it.
Absolutely. But I think when there's changes like this, there's all these rules that we're like taught to believe as we grow up. And then something like the pandemic almost breaks those rules. So this idea like, oh, you can't work remote. You're not as productive if you're remote. These industries can never be remote. They have to have somebody in the office. And then all of a sudden, that's not an option anymore.
So tell me about reverse engineering your business growth and stair-stepping your way into the CEO role, because I know for a lot of listeners, the idea of being a CEO feels like a really, really big, overwhelming sort of concept. So what's your approach on that?
Absolutely. And that's my whole idea is just to take these big, overwhelming concepts like CEO and six-figure businesses and all these kind of words that get thrown around and really break them down into small, like bite-sized, actionable steps, so that if you are doing this every day, every week, every quarter, you will eventually hit your goals, just like little by little, step by step. So within a business foundation, a lot of people start their business because they're super passionate about it. They love website design, they love copywriting, they love coaching, they love all the things that they do, and they take that passion into their business, and then they're successful, and they're almost like, oh my gosh, I'm successful, I'm doing really well. How do I grow? How do I make more money with working less hours? How do I stop doing the things I hate doing, like marketing maybe, or sales, or whatever might be the thing that you just really despise doing, so you can focus more on what you enjoy in your business? So when they get to that point where they're successful and they want to grow, or they want to step back as far as hours go, it's like we need to go back to the beginning. And we need to actually apply almost like this corporate concept to these really fun online businesses, which is a mission, a vision, and your values.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's really the first step.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you're right. A lot of us kind of stumble into our businesses because we find something we're good at and we think, oh, okay, well, I'll make a bit of money, and then it turns into a business. And I don't even think I started thinking about, with my first business, which was an organizing one, I don't think I really started thinking about mission and values until maybe 3 years into it. At first, it was just, I need money to put food on the table.
Right. And I'm good at this and I enjoy this and people are buying it. It's almost like an accident to a certain extent. You don't really know how you were successful. You don't really know what works, what doesn't work. And so you end up with this business that's almost run on like a gut feeling. Yeah. Which I'm a big fan of gut feelings. I love intuition, big fan of that, but that's not something you can run a business off of because you have these ideas like that worked and that didn't work. It's like, is that true? Is that really what the reality is? And so really being able to get in there and start a nice foundation, like you're building a house, like we need to go backwards, put a good foundation in so you can continue to grow this business and that it will last, hopefully, as long as you want it to last.
Yeah. So it's almost like we need to do a little bit of a shift from just the creative part of our business and thinking and responding off the cuff to, client projects and stuff like that. And we need to make a slight shift into more data-driven decisions, would you say, or more kind of a little bit corporate-y, as much as I know a lot of us are like, I left corporate for more freedom. I
Right.
think the reason it works so well in corporate is because it takes the emotion out of decision making and out of processes and things like that, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like there are some good things about corporate that can be applied to the online world. Like a lot of it can go in the trash for sure, but some of it can be applied to the online world. And like you said, I mean, they have these huge industries that are able to build these massive empires. And the reason is because they have the right foundation in place.
Yeah. All right. So for people listening to today who are like, okay, reverse engineering, I've heard the term, but I don't really know what it means. How would you describe that to people?
Sure. So I would say it kind of comes from two different sides of it. Number one is like, what is your big, like, hairy, audacious goal, as they say? Like, where do you want to be this year? Okay, that's your goal. Now you're going to need to break that down into smaller chunks, which is kind of the second part. So that's your goal. And then the first part is my mission is my what. This is what I do in my business. My vision is my why. So this is like what keeps me motivated even on those days where you're like, I do not want to show up right now. And then your values are kind of like how you do it. It's like the spin that you put on your business, on who you hire, on the products and services you create, and everything else. And so once you have those three things, then literally everything you do in your business, on your business, clients you work with, content you create, you need to look back to that and say, is this helping me with my mission, my vision, and am I within my values? And if not,
don't do it.
chuck it.
Yeah.
It's not a project for you.
So it's like every call you make from that point on, is this aligned with my mission and my vision and my values? If not, it's probably not urgent or important. It's not on my, it shouldn't be on the radar, really.
Right. And it's going to be hard. You're probably not going to enjoy it. It's probably going to flop. And then you're going to have feelings associated with that of like, oh, I failed. It's not that you failed. It's that you did something that was outside of the foundation that you built for your business. And I think it also really helps with the shiny object syndrome, because like, oh, that looks cool. Look what that person did. I want to do that. I want to do that. But then it's like, yeah, that can be cool. Absolutely. And you can admire them and think maybe someday I'll do this. But if you go back to your mission, vision, and values, and what that person did is not in alignment, then it also really helps for you to be like, yep, I don't need to put that on my list.
Yeah.
It's one less thing to do.
Yes, nice. That's such a good point. So it actually helps you focus as well and get things done that are going to move your business forward. But you're actually focusing on how you're helping people and how your business is. Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. And you're right. I think it does take a lot of the pressure, the emotion, the worry out of it, because it doesn't remove you, but I think it builds.
It's almost like a filter.
Yes, filter.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a filter. It's like you're kind of running it through like a coffee filter almost, and getting all the grounds out. And so I think it gives people permission that you don't have to say yes to everything. We talk about boundaries being important and boundaries being healthy, but when you're an online entrepreneur and maybe you work by yourself, like, who's imposing those boundaries except for you? And it's hard to put a word to them or a name to them. And so that's what this process really helps you do, is put like, okay, here's my almost like parameters. And every decision I make is going to go here. Now, the cool thing about online business is that because it moves so quickly with technology and the world changing, everything else, that's not your forever mission. That's not your forever vision. And those probably aren't even your forever values. A year from now, which is why I recommend people do it at least every year, you might have a different mission. And that's okay. And the great thing about online world is that we can pivot so quickly to incorporate that new mission and even use what we learned from the last mission and then just keep moving forward. So it's not, I think people get scared sometimes. It's like, I have to do that forever. No. Yeah. That's just probably for like the next year. Then at the end of this year, revisit it. Does it still resonate? Do you still love it? Are you still excited about it? Then keep on going.
Yeah, so it's not set in stone. And that also relieves that pressure of I've got to get it exactly right. You don't have to get it exactly right, because it's going to change and tweak over time anyway. It's a really good way of looking at it. So when I think of reverse engineering as a process, because I love that idea, you start with your goal in mind and then your actions are aligned with the actual goal. You're not just reacting to little fires that pop up all the time. You're moving towards what that long-term goal is. But I remember corporate wise, we would always hear about SMART goals, like specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. It was always tied up with the concept of reverse engineering. So I'm just wondering, what's your take on SMART goals? How do you feel about them? Because for me, I have to admit, wasn't a favorite.
I was about to say, I know it's a controversial subject. So people are like, no, get rid of SMART goals. Other people are like, I love them.
Yeah.
What I think happens, and because it's very formal and it's very like, let's do SMART, and it's not fun and interesting. So people kind of lose interest in that sense. But again, it's like taking this creativity and taking these creative entrepreneurs and giving them some kind of form, some kind of container, and not to trap them or limit them, but again, to like almost reduce the outside noise, like reduce like, oh, what's that person doing over there? Like the FOMO, the fear of missing out. So when it comes to SMART goals, I feel like most people don't like them because they miss one of the letters. So they will do, 4 of the 5 letters and not one of them. And that's why they get frustrated, because they're like achievable is a huge one. Like, I want to make $1 million by the end of this year. Well, how much are you making now? $100,000. Probably not achievable in the next year. Like, realistically, is it possible? Sure, but not really achievable. So I think people set themselves up for a little bit of failure in the first place, because they're not specific enough. And so when I do SMART goals with my clients, I usually go about 3 levels down. So here's my goal. I want to double my revenue this year. Okay. We need to go down, and we need to go down, and we need to go down. And then it's like, this is really your goal probably for the next quarter. You really can't plan much more than a quarter in advance. And even, again, the online world moves quickly. You kind of pivot and you like reestablish throughout the quarter. Yes. So what we typically do is take their goals and make them SMART, put like some metrics beside them. And then the really cool thing about this is if like you kind of change your mindset about it, that when you achieve it, it's like a big red, like, woohoo, you achieved this, because you see all the things come together. And if you don't achieve it, a lot of times you can look at why. Was it I didn't give myself enough time? Was it that I wasn't specific enough? What is this? Did I not measure the results? And therefore, I don't even know if I succeeded or not. So a lot of times it's just a matter of people are missing one of the letters.
Yeah. That's a really good, I think that changes that shift in me from thinking, oh, it's really, really rigid, to actually it's a guideline that's going to help me. So yeah, that makes it easier to look at it that way. And you're right about the achievable thing. And I think, is it still okay to have a big goal that's maybe a 5-year goal or a 1-year goal, but your actual, your planning and your actions are more that 90 days, so that you can get to the next step and the next step and the next step and eventually achieve the big goal. It takes the pressure off, right?
Absolutely.
Of having to make that $1 million in the next 90 days. It's just,
right.
Like immediately I'm like, what? No.
Exactly. And I think, having those big goals is wonderful, because it gives you something to wake up for, it gives you something excited to be excited about every day as you approach your business. And then I think sometimes we get disconnected from those big goals, though, because it's like, okay, right now I am sending out a contract. I am setting up my welcome email sequence in my inbox. I'm responding to some DMs on Instagram. How is that getting me to $1 million a year?
Yeah.
How is that getting me to more time freedom? Like, are those actions getting me there? Yes, if they're part of the bigger plan. But if they're disconnected from the bigger plan, if they're disconnected from the mission, vision, and values, if they're disconnected from the big vision or the big goal, then you probably are going to be frustrated, because you don't see how that's connecting to the goal down the line.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So for people who want to take this approach and apply it to their business, I know a lot of them are probably thinking, right, the first step is setting the goal. But is that true? What would you say would be the first step when it comes to doing this?
I'm very like personality and kind of customized based person. I don't think there's really a right or wrong way to do anything. It really is like what works for you. If you're like a dreamer and you just love doing vision boards and the idea of like creating this amazing goal for your business and then getting down to kind of the how that you're going to do it, I think that's great. If you're like, I've had the same goal for forever, I feel like I'm kind of working towards it, but there's not something there, then start with the foundation and mission, vision, values, So I think it really depends on the person. I don't think there's anything wrong either way. My suggestion would be, you want to have all those elements, though. Don't just have your goal and then not build the foundation, and don't build a foundation without an exciting goal that's going to help you, get motivated to work towards it.
Yeah. And even just talking today, I kind of think, just personally from my perspective, because I kind of get carried away with the creativity and that sort of thing, and then forget to get stuck into the actual numbers and planning and actions and that sort of thing. I kind of think, oh, well, the goal is the part that gets me excited in the first place, but the mission and the vision and the values, that's what's going to actually get me moving towards that goal. So that feels like a really good, solid foundation for it. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's going to help you on those hard days too, when you're just frustrated. Nothing seems like it's going your way. Maybe a sale didn't come through that you were expecting, or a client didn't renew or something like that. And really holding on to that big goal, and then your why with your vision is just like kind of can help you through those tough moments when you just want to like throw in the towel. Just like, I'm done. I'm done
help you keep going. Yeah. Show up again tomorrow.
Exactly.
Oh, Hunter, that's been so helpful. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of that, because
you're welcome.
It's really nice to be able to think in terms of outside your little bubble that you're living in. And I think you have a really good way of making things that feel big and corporate-y actually relevant to a small business owner or a service provider or someone with more of an entrepreneur mindset than a CEO mindset, because they are a little bit different, I think, when you're running your own business. And yeah, you've made that really approachable and really interesting and really helpful. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, I've loved having you on. And I know you've got a couple of resources for our listeners too, right? Did you want to share about those?
I do. Yes, I would love to. So I have a special page for podcast listeners on our website, which is www.tortoiseandthebear.com /podcast. And it's got a lovely free customer journey audit on there. So you can really see where your customers are from start to finish, because there's usually almost always a gap at that point. So it's going to be able to fix that pretty quickly. And then we're also offering my free business foundations workbook, which will essentially walk you through everything I just said, like in a really simple step-by-step way. So hopefully it will take out the overwhelm and the feeling that it's like corporate jargon. So that link, I believe, will be in the show notes for people to enjoy.
Definitely. Yeah. I'll leave a link for both, and I'll pop your Instagram and your website in there as well, so that if people want to connect with you further, you're nice and easy for them to find. I think that business foundations workbook will be a really good step-by-step to follow on from this conversation, to actually get people going from listening to the podcast to taking action on what they've heard today. So that's really good. And to have an audit on your customer journey, so nice to have a fresh pair of eyes on something that's got a different viewpoint, because, as the owner of our business, we're very specific in the way we look at it, and we can get caught up in the day-to-day running of the business and kind of forget that overall outlook or that customer experience as well, because we're so tied up in our experience of it. So yeah, I think they'll love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
And for everybody listening, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed it myself, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Simpler Business Podcast. If you did, please subscribe, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you, just the way we like it. If you're ready to simplify and scale your business, you can get started with my free audio class at marissaroberts.com. See you next time.